The deputy president of the country will never know how much it means for us to have him in our midst as a family. And so it is my pleasure to invite him to come and deliver his eulogy. Let's all stand to welcome him on stage.
Let's be seated, please. Mfambisi wa ntirho, Professor Maluleke. Family of our brother George Maluleke, Sesi Maluleke family, both families, the Tsele and the Maluleke family. Minister Asuta, Minister of Justice, Constitutional Affairs and Correctional Services, former Deputy Chief Justice Kgang Seneke, the leadership of judiciary in our country, and the members of the judiciary in all the divisions, esteemed mourners, Mfambisi wa ntirho nkhensa nkarhi lowu ni nga nyikiwa wona ku ri na mina ni veka swimbirhi swinharhu hi munhu loyi a ni n'wi tiva ni tirhi na yena. Un'wani u te laha Uom, a ni mi vitana Uom, a ri president ya le social movement. Manje, I never knew that he was regarded as the president of social movement. What, I'm sure he never became deputy president. He was president of social movement. And I don't think he wrote notes or a book on what it is like to be president of social movement. So I will never know. I wish he had told me. I'm truly honored to stand here to pay tribute to a remarkable man, and also to remember and celebrate the wonderful and full life of Judge George Semi Shane Maluleke, who was also affectionately referred to as G.S.S. I called him Uom. And on behalf of the government of the Republic of South Africa, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the Maluleke family and the Tsele family. In many ways, G.S.S. passing compels us to confront what one could call the mystery of death. And as with every valued friend's or relative's departure, there is always a deep sense of loss. And with such a great loss, we yearn and we pray for the calming of our hearts, the healing of our fresh and open wounds, and the overcoming of our sorrow. And as we try to analyze this mystery, death, we draw consolation, in my view, from the from the fact that our brother, George Maluleke, served our nation fully, and not only fully, but with absolute distinction. The mere reality of his life and the impact he had on many people and many institutions during his life emboldens us to ask, like the Apostle Paul in his letter to the Corinthians, when he said, "O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory?" Today, as we stand here and as we celebrate this life, it is an apt statement to make and say, "Death, you have deprived us of this valued friend, valued brother, valued relative, but where is thy sting?" Because today we stand here to fully celebrate his life. Even so, Judge Maluleke's death has left a void in our hearts and in our lives that will be difficult to fill. People like G.S.S. come too few and far between. They don't always arrive. They don't always happen. We don't always find them. They are hard to find. We are fortunate that Providence provided us with a man who lies here today. Everyone, I'm sure, remembers the first time they met George Maluleke. I certainly do. But I guess Morongwe will remember even more. It was interesting to hear that they met in Chiawero, where I grew up. How he found her, I don't know. I was not there, much younger. I had the privilege of serving articles at Henry Dolovitz's, a firm that he had joined and had qualified as a lawyer in. A small firm in Johannesburg of a brave Jewish lawyer who defied all odds and was prepared to take on black aspiring law graduates into his firm and train them up as lawyers. That's what he did with George. When I arrived, George was already an admitted attorney. I had just come out of detention and been rejected by the University of the North once again. So I was looking for a job and I was studying. And in my travails, I met my elder brother, Keith Sandile Kunene, who recommended me to this firm where I could serve my articles. It was here that I had the privilege of being mentored by these two great friends, Bra George and Bra Keith. They introduced me to the mechanics of legal practice. They taught me the ropes and patiently and did so methodically. I guess when the attraction of going to work in the trade union movement got to me, they threw their hands up in exasperation because I would easily have been the very first lawyer that George would have qualified out of his hands, out of the many that he did, 30 or so. But Brother George became my role model, became my mentor and an elder brother. And I know that I'm not alone here who embarked on this amazing odyssey of being taught and mentored by G.S.S. I've met many others who have said exactly the same thing. It was an odyssey. It was a journey of empowerment and a journey of great discovery. But he did much more than that. In him, many of us discovered a fine man who was the epitome of fairness. A man of great humility, hidden behind his great infectious laughter, was a noble soul whose intellect and expertise was an instrument that sought to achieve a more just and a more humane world. Behind his eyes, one found magnanimity, one found kindness, one found balance and sensitivity. His soul was shaken whenever the poor and marginalized were treated with contempt. And I saw this at close range as many of our people came to Henry Dolovitz, and Brother George had to deal with very difficult cases that affected the lives of our people. As he taught many of us law, he also showed us how one can demonstrate compassion to others. This he did because he genuinely cared about the well-being of others. He never hesitated to stand with the downtrodden against injustice. And it's pleasing to have heard that it started when he was still a young man, after his father was involved in an accident, and he tried to get justice from the road accident fund. He saw the law as an effective instrument to protect the poor and the underprivileged from the powerful and the privileged. I can say that his life is a lesson that no matter the odds, society must always choose the side of justice. Judge Maluleke was very meticulous. He was a well-ordered lawyer. He was courageous, and he was a great teacher. He was endowed with intelligence, eloquence, charisma, and also a wicked wit. Overlaid on all this was also his humor. He also nurtured an appreciation of the law as an instrument of the will of the people and an instrument of justice. He taught that respect for the law cannot be separated from an abiding respect for humanity. And G.S.S. always demanded clarity in reasoning, never compromised on judicial standards. He also taught us that competence in any profession is achieved only by persistent application and hard work. He valued and demanded integrity from lawyers. The integrity he displayed throughout his life should serve as an inspiration to us and indeed to all of us, especially in these times when temptation waits at every turn. His steadfast beliefs should also be a source of strength and faith for us who are faced with the dilemmas, many dilemmas and moral conflicts. We have learned by his example that there is no greater fulfillment than giving our best in everything that we do. Many people have spoken about his work ethic. And his work ethic is what I would say should be our guidepost as we go about doing what we have to do and doing good for our people as a whole. Judge Maluleke did not tolerate people who were not honorable. He did not tolerate people who were unprincipled. Our country has lost an archetype of judicial grace and legal sophistication. And despite his great successes, he was never boastful, always humble. He managed to stay humble throughout a lifetime of personal successes, and he did all this with humor and with grace. As a judge, he never abused his position because he always sought to show empathy for all people. It was never in his nature to scorn, to intimidate, to look down upon others, to humiliate. That was not in his nature. In December last year, when we marked his retirement, I spoke of the outstanding role that he had played in the struggle for a free and democratic and just South Africa. I recalled that, like many of his peers, Judge Maluleke joined the legal profession at a time and in a place where the law existed as a means to oppress, to dispossess, and to exploit. He joined the legal profession at a time when the gulf between the law and justice was as pronounced as the divide between black and white. It was a very dangerous time in our country. It was a time of unjust laws and unaccountable courts, as well as unaccountable judges. It was in this harsh environment that he and others, former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, Judge Cyril, formed one of the pioneering black legal firms in South Africa, a firm that I'm happy to say still exists. Given this environment, but given also his character, much of his work was dedicated to defending people in political trials. It was work that brought material reward, or rather, it was work that did not bring any material reward, and that was frowned upon by many in the established profession. But it did earn him the respect and the admiration of many activists, their families, and the communities on whose behalf they fought. The efforts of Judge Maluleke and others like him not only made a huge difference in the lives of those they defended, but they helped to sustain a conception of justice that stood in stark contrast to the law of the time. And in doing so, they contributed in no small measure to the principles, to the ethos and the values that underpin the practice of law today. It was to the efforts of people like Judge Maluleke that today we have a constitution that is founded on the imperative to build a new society in our country that is based on equality and the protection of human dignity. It is a matter of great satisfaction that he dedicated the last 2 decades of his career to upholding, defending, and advancing this constitution. And the work that he did has left many of his fingerprints on the dispensation that has now evolved and continues to evolve in our judicial jurisprudence. It must have brought him great joy to be on the bench in the formative years of a constitutional democracy for which he strived throughout his life and for which he had given so much. It must have brought great joy to him to be able to apply the law for the benefit of the poor, the marginalized, and the vulnerable. We were reminded of the case that he handled when one of our own had been thrown into the lion's den. And many of us had no doubt whatsoever in our minds that the judgment that he would write and pronounce would be on the side of justice and our people. As he departs from the world of the mortals, we must acknowledge that there is still much we need to do to ensure that all South Africans are fully able to enjoy the rights that are contained in our Constitution. As we bid him farewell, we say thank you, thank you, G.S.S. Thank you, dear friend, mentor, and brother, for making dignity, warmth, love, and respect the defining hallmarks of your character. We thank you, great son of the Malulekes, for offering many of us your special gift of friendship. Our many interactions with you affirmed, enriched, and deepened our lives. We thank you for your service to our people and to the nation. And we thank Morumwe, the children, and his family for supporting him all the years he selflessly served our people. An eagle has soared to the heavens to watch us from above. We will gather the wood and rekindle the fire. Without being prophetic, one could say that G.S.S. will live on through the lives of many of us who have been influenced by his example. He will live on through the great example that he set for all of us. For all of us here who are so deeply touched by his life. Right now, we may feel sad and diminished by his passing. Certainly, his immediate family feels so, but many of us who knew him, knew of him, do feel it quite intensely. But let us not lose sight of how much he has enriched our lives by just being who he was. A husband, a father, a brother, a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. He lived a full life, putting his skills and his talents, his knowledge, his expertise to good use by being a great lawyer, a great public servant, and touching the lives of many with his thoroughness, thoughtfulness, sincerity, his passion, his compassion, and his concern. In his own way, he made our country a better place, even as we strive today to find our balance in our public affairs, and for this, his memory will always endure, never to be forgotten, especially by those whose lives he touched, and that goes for all of us. Go well, go well, brother. Kombela kuri, uetlela, urula, ufamba kahle, urungula laban'wani angafamba before ufamba. Ita tshama hi ku hleketa. Swinenenene ta hleketa mintirho ya wena leswi u nga yi endlela swona. And for me, I thank you deeply, because much of what I know about serving people I learned from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And that's not a mistake.